In today's presentation, we'll be showing how to install the spindle, wheel hub, locking hub, knuckleball seals, and brake components. We'll begin by installing the wheel spindle. Prepare the spindle by applying a good quality silicone gasket maker. Apply a thin uniform bead around the circumference of the spindle, as well as around each of the bolt holes. Install the spindle over the axle as shown and align the holes. Install the brake caliper adapter. Install all 4 bolts, each with a lock washer. Snug each bolt with a 14 mm socket. Then torque all the bolts in an increasingly tighter crisscross pattern until 21 foot-pounds is reached. Next, we'll install the hub and bearings. Apply a light film of grease on the spindle, paying particular attention to the seal surface area. While securing the outboard bearing with your thumbs, install the hub on the wheel spindle. Then install the thrust washer by aligning this tab with this groove. Then install the adjustment nut. While rotating the hub, tighten the adjustment nut to 57 foot-pounds. Then loosen the nut until it is hand loose. Then, while continuing to rotate the hub, tighten the adjustment nut to 10 foot-pounds. Rotate the hub to make sure that it turns with moderate drag. Next, install the locking washer with this tab aligned with this notch. Then install the lock nut and torque it to 65 foot-pounds. Lock both nuts in place by bending the lock washer tabs. Select a tab that best aligns with the flat on the adjustment nut and bend it inward using a chisel and a hammer. Then select a tab that best aligns with a flat on the lock nut and bend it outward. We'll now install the locking hub. Begin by placing a gasket on the hub studs. Install the locking hub on the studs. On each of the studs, install a cone washer, a lock washer, and a nut. Once all the cone washers and lock washers and nuts are installed, snug each one using a 12 mm socket. Then torque these nuts in an increasingly tighter crisscross pattern until 20 foot-pounds is reached. Using spreader pliers, install the lock ring on the end of the axle shaft. Once the lock ring is close to the groove in the axle, pull the axle out using the tip of a standard screwdriver. Once the groove is completely exposed, continue pushing the lock ring until it snaps into the groove of the axle. Next, we'll install the hub cover. Be sure the handle is in the free position and the gasket is still in place. Orient the hub cover such that this pawl tab and these 2 teeth fit in this section of the hub that is missing a tooth and is a larger opening. Start all 6 bolts and washers in the hub cover and then torque them in an increasingly tighter crisscross pattern until 8 foot-pounds is reached. Be careful not to over-torque these bolts. They are easily stripped. Now let's check the hub for proper operation. This is done by placing the handle in the lock position. Then, while rotating the hub, observe that the differential pinion or opposite wheel is rotating properly. Now move the handle to the free position and rotate the hub. The pinion flange or other wheel should not be turning. Next, we'll install the knuckleball seal assembly. This job is made easier by temporarily installing these water pump hub studs. Hand tighten 2 studs in the bottom of the steering knuckle and 2 studs in the top. Orient the top half of the oil seal retainer such that this lip is oriented toward the steering knuckle. Position it on the top 2 studs. Then orient and install the bottom half of the oil seal retainer on the bottom 2 studs. Apply a light film of grease on the knuckleball. Slide the knuckleball seal into place. Ensure that it fits properly around the ball and seated in the retainer all the way around. Then slide the knuckleball pad into place, ensuring that the holes align properly with the steering knuckle and studs. Position the front half of the oil seal cover as shown. Then, while holding the front cover, position the rear cover and start the cover bolts in the available 4 holes. There are 2 in the rear and 2 in the front. Leave these 4 bolts loose for now. Once these bolts are started, remove the 4 studs and start the remaining 4 cover bolts. Once all 8 bolts are in and started, snug each bolt using a 10mm socket. Then torque each bolt in an increasingly tighter crisscross pattern until 8 foot-pounds is reached. Be careful not to over-torque. These bolts are easily stripped. We'll next install the brake components. Place the rotor on the wheel studs. Align the steering arm bolt holes with the holes in the brake caliper adapter and insert the bolts and the lock washers. Position the brake caliper over the disc and align the holes with the bolts. Start each bolt by hand and then torque both bolts to 40 foot-pounds. Once the bolts are tight, check the brake rotor for proper movement. That concludes today's presentation. We hope these instructions have been helpful. If ever we can help you with any of your off-road needs, give us a call at 801-805-6644 or log on to www.lowrangeoffroad.com.